Do I feel that we should get our pitchforks out for Cursor MTX? No, I don't. However, I do think this is indicative of a pretty massive change in the way that GGG has presented themselves to us recently, and I do think that the writing is on the wall that things are probably going to get worse. But before we talk about that, as is tradition, I am Big Ducks, and welcome back to the channel. Now remember, if you're enjoying this content, make sure that you like this video so that YouTube knows to recommend you more of it. Also, over 75% of you are still not subscribed to this YouTube channel. If you want to stay up to date with all of my latest content, make sure that you subscribe so that these videos will show right up in your feed, and you can always change your mind later. Now, without further ado, let's actually get back into the video. Alright boys, so this is going to be a little bit of a talking head video, so if you like this style of video, make sure to let me know down in the comments and give me your thoughts about how you think that PoE's going, the changes that are being made. Are you enjoying the direction that the game's going? Make sure to let me know down below. Now the thing that I want to talk about in this video is the new post that they made and why people are getting so upset about it seemingly. GGG has made a post where they're talking about new Cursor MTX that they're giving to the game, where they're making like a pack, I think it's like $10, and you get like 5 mouse MTX things, like basically like little JPEG pictures of your mouse cursor, and people are kind of upset. And while I think that this is not really a huge deal, I don't personally care that much. They gave us a free high contrast mouse cursor one, and this is something that you've been able to do for free forever through a program called YOLO Mouse, and people have been using it for quite some time, and they haven't changed that. Now, if GGG suddenly said, no, you can't use YOLO Mouse anymore, then there'd probably be reason to get your pitchforks out. I feel that while all of that doesn't really matter in a vacuum, I feel that it is a trend that we have seen getting worse over time. All the way back a couple months ago, there was one of the most notorious posts that GGG has ever made, and that was the Harvest Manifesto. I think the only thing that GGG has ever done that people hated more than the Harvest Manifesto was probably that time when they gave us like loot boxes where you could take your loot box drops and convert 5 of them into another item, and you had to pay for that. People hated that and they removed it immediately because they're like, yeah, that's a little greedy. Beyond that, I think the Harvest post was probably the most hated that they've ever made. And as you might have noticed, ever since then, and even a little bit before then, have you noticed how little GGG has communicated with us? How they're kind of just making these posts, and then even with huge community backlash, they just don't really seem to care. I think that this is something that has been happening for quite some time, and I've called this many times over my Twitch stream at twitch.tv/BigDucks, that you should follow, by the way, that GGG is becoming more corporatized. They are becoming less the small indie dev that everyone knows and loves, and they are becoming more the giant corporate entity that makes tens of millions of dollars every year. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but I do feel that it's going to rub some people the wrong way. As we've seen recently, a bunch of prominent community members have been quitting. A lot of people seem to be up in arms, and the community is probably more divided than it's ever been at this point. Between people just, being upset about one thing and other people being like, no, it's fine, stop complaining, GGG is great, the game is awesome, and I do agree the game is awesome. I play it 30+ hours a week. I wouldn't if I didn't like it, but I can see where some of these other people were complaining and upset about how the game is going. I can see from their perspective as well. It really does feel like recently they are kind of just doing the bare minimum to get by, and I'm not exactly sure why it is. It almost feels like they are trying to cut things short a little bit so they can get back to their December release. It feels like this is that moment that everyone's been talking about for quite some time, where it's like, it feels like they're just behind, and they just need to catch up. And I feel that that's what Ultimatum actually is, and I feel like that's the process that we're going to see going forward, is that they are trying to catch up, essentially, because there's no reason for them to skip a December release. I think everybody kind of universally hated the fact that they were like, yeah, we're going to skip because of Cyberpunk. I mean, look how Cyberpunk turned out. You should have more faith in your product, in my opinion. I think that the real reason was just because they were like, well, the product's not ready, so we're just going to move it back a month. I feel that that was the actual reason. Ultimately, what it comes to is that we are seeing more of a corporate response from GGG, between it being like them announcing their leagues differently. You remember back in the day, we'd have like Bex doing like little tiny like breadcrumb trail posts, and the community would interact and we'd be trying to figure stuff out, and Reddit would be like, oh, she said this, or oh, this is happening, oh, look at this announcement that they made, it might be this. And now instead we just kind of get this one big giant trailer, and like prominent community members talk about it, and we have Chris, and he gets up on the screen, he's like, hey, this is the thing, let's talk about it, woohoo. And then they sponsor streamers like Double Lift and Shroud, and they pay a whole bunch of content creators to post things on Twitter. Doesn't that feel a lot more like something that, I don't know, like Blizzard would do? It does feel like they're kind of following in their footsteps a little bit. Now, you may not like to hear that, and before you get your pitchforks out for me, let me kind of explain a little bit. we've been seeing this process of like cyclical balancing that they've been doing, where they kind of just nerf everything and kind of rotate between different specs and abilities and things that are good to keep things interesting. That's something that Blizzard has been doing for quite some time. They have been doing this thing where they kind of like hold back things just so that they can give it to us later, so that we are like, oh yeah, this is awesome. Like, look at the quality of life changes that we suddenly got a flood of in Ultimatum. If they knew all of these changes were a thing and they decided to do them all at one time, why couldn't we have had these forever ago? They don't seem that difficult to implement. I mean, I don't know how their code is. I don't know how their source code or anything works. Are we really just like dangling quality of life changes over people's heads now and be like, here you go, take some morsels and hopefully you like them? And then Ultimatum just kind of was, you know, like a phoned in mechanic. It doesn't really feel like there's much to it. It's Ritual, essentially Ritual 2.0 with like a sassy trial master who's kind of funny and cool, but the rest of it doesn't really seem too interesting. It's like, well, I'd rather just kind of have Ritual plus the trial master instead of all this Ultimatum stuff. Just kind of seems phoned in. And that's kind of where we're at. It feels like GGG is kind of going the corporate route now. They're going corpo, and it is rubbing a lot of people the wrong way. So I'm curious to see how you guys feel about it. Let me know down in the comments. Do you feel that GGG is kind of shifting and we're getting a different look and they're just kind of becoming like most other big game corporations? The only thing different about them that I feel at this point is the fact that they're focusing on one game and updating the game itself over and over and over again and trying to make the game as good as possible. That's pretty much the only real difference that I see nowadays in comparison to most other companies similar to them, where they just make a new game every once in a while. So let me know how you feel. Now, to give you kind of a TLDR, to give you my closing thoughts on the whole matter, I feel that GGG is just becoming more corporate. We're going to see less community interaction, we're going to see smaller leagues, we're going to see less soul to the game and the changes and the feeling as we go forward. I feel that the writing's been on the wall for quite some time, and I would love to be proved wrong. Keep in mind, I love Path of Exile. It is easily my favorite game that they've ever put out, but the whole like change with the way they announce things, with it feeling much more giant corporatized, the dangling of quality of life mechanics over our heads, the just not really communicating with us as much as they did before, I really do feel that that's the path they're going. So remember guys, this is a little bit different content to what I normally put out. I normally only really put out, you know, like guides and things like that, so I'm doing a little bit different. Make sure to let me know down in the comments, and also like this video if you enjoy this new style of content, and don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel for more content similar to this. And as always, stay safe out there in raid class, and I'll see you guys in the next video.